With the Bridgerton season 4 trailer dropping last Christmas, smack dab in the middle of my holiday slash break from the channel, mind you, it meant that I wasn't able to share my thoughts on the trailer and what my expectations are for the upcoming season immediately dropped, which was frustrating to me as I have thoughts about it, especially about Netflix's strange ass decision to drop said trailer at a point where a lot of us were away from the internet for the holidays. Like for real, Netflix needs to suspend or fire their marketing team for this season because the choices they are making makes zero sense to me. Anyway, whilst I oscillated between making a video about how the trailer clearly wants us to suspend all disbelief for the season and talking about how Benedict's rakish ways are a bit different from the other rakes we've gotten so far, because I have seen complaints. And yes, I might make a video explaining this particular thought of mine in next week's Bridgerton video. I ended up deciding to focus instead on what is clearly going to be a central theme for this season: mass. The ones we wear, the ones we are forced to take on, and how ultimately what season 4 is calling for the characters to do is to learn to look beyond the mask, a la Cinderella, which I know society often writes off as a simple fairy tale of a maltreated character getting their chance to shine and who then catches the eye of a love interest that is of a higher class status than they are, and they then have their happily ever after afterwards. But I have always been fascinated by the masks and the role it plays in that particular fairy tale, even if, not all Cinderellas wear it. But in this case, the role it will play for Benedict Bridgerton in season 4. Because, yes, whilst the season's focus will clearly be on the character of Sophie, who, mild spoilers from the books here, is someone that has been forced into a life of servitude by her family until one magical night she gets the chance to attend her first ever ball, like she's always dreamed of, and where she then meets Benedict Bridgerton, as we see from the trailer. And after she makes her escape, it is up to Benedict, who is desperate to unmask the woman of his dreams, to find her. I also think it's just as important for us to examine the story from the perspective of how it is going to change Benedict as a character and help him grow to make have him more connected with Sophie for their love story. But of course, before I get into all of that, a quick thank you to my lovely patrons and YouTube members whose support have been instrumental in helping me continue to make content, especially since I started doing this full time at the start of last year, which was the last time I was in paid employment. And a special shout out to Lena and Holly for their extra support. You get all the hearts and kisses too. Mwah. If you too would like to support me on Patreon or become a YouTube member to enjoy certain perks, even get a shout out, the link to do so is in the description bar. And with that said, back to Benedict Bridgerton now. Something I've always said when I talk about Bridgerton season 4, and I've made a couple of videos on the various teasers we've gotten so far, is the fact that it has always been obvious that Benedict's season is meant to focus on his art and him finding his way back to it as well. I mean, after the devastation to his artistic ego at the realization that he only got into the Royal Academy of Art thanks to Anthony's donation, Benedict has not quite found himself as an artist ever since. Season 3 saw him floundering to the point that he couldn't even bring himself to admit to Paul Suarez what he actually does and who he is. Because fundamentally, Benedict is a character who has defined himself and his skill based off of the recognition that would come from a place as hollowed as the Royal Academy of Art and other artists like him, which meant that the discovery that he didn't get in only due to his own merit was enough to unmoor him. The reason why I bring this up, this part of the conversation that sees Benedict as someone who ties his own self worth and identity to how respected institutions define and see him, is because ultimately that is meant to be his character trajectory this season, to be able to see himself outside of that, to not bind himself to such a strict perception of what makes a true artist who is able to create art that lasts and connects and moves whoever is able to perceive it. That is the only way he's going to break free of the artistic slump that he's currently in. He has to learn to not have institutions be the one to decide if he is an artist of note or not. Instead, he gets to be the one to make that distinction by making art, by falling in love with the process again. And like I mentioned in the video I did when the teaser dropped months ago about how we can clearly see Benedict, who is taken in by Sophie's joy and awe at seeing the chandelier at his mother's masquerade ball. And now it is clear that Sophie this season is meant to be Benedict's muse, the muse that gets him to take a deeper look at a world he's grown so jaded by, a world he's taken for granted, so that he can see the beauty in the everyday that has eluded him so far. I do not think it's a coincidence that we get to see matters as it pertains to Benedict being connected to Sophie's family in that way. In the trailer, when Sophie is bemoaning the fact that she isn't going to be able to go to the ball, whereas her, minor spoiler here, stepsisters get to do so, and they're not even interested or appreciative of the opportunity because they've taken it for granted. Know who else has taken everything for granted so far? Benedict Bridgerton, whose small spoiler from the books is not so excited for his mother's upcoming masquerade ball either. Which, to be fair, the show does give us a bit of a hint at the end of season 3 of Benedict's growing ennui with the matter of being left behind by his siblings. Remember, of all the Bridgerton boys, Benedict Bridgerton has always been the romantic at his core, even with his rakish ways. And I will go more in depth into that in my Benedict's unique brand of racism video if that is requested. But as I was saying, Benedict is not excited for the ball, which is not unlike Rosamund Stans either, who in the trailer we see is utterly disinterested in the upcoming ball, as she's most certainly not thrilled at the thought of having to spend all night on her feet. It is that statement that irks Sophie to no end, to realize that something that she would die to experience is being treated so casually. At the core of her characterization, Sophie Bake is a woman who treasures every moment she gets to experience outside of the life of servitude that she's been forced into. And it is clear that this very obvious stance of hers is one that would in turn inspire Benedict as well. Benedict, who so far has gotten bored, frankly, with everything else and needs the jolt that is necessary for him to learn to take in what has always to him become ordinary and look at what it contains to find the extraordinary that lies beneath it. And it does lie underneath. When Sophie mentions in the trailer that Benedict doesn't actually want to find her, he wants to instead find the lady in the silver dress, a woman who isn't real and is instead the facade that Sophie herself created in order to go to the ball. She is right about that. The entire premise of the season and Cinderella as a fairy tale is to be made aware that things are often not as they appear, and that underneath what is perceived as the glamour is the effort, the grunge that goes into it. Sophie Bake, like Cinderella, gets to have one magical night, but her reality is the hard work of drudgery that she's been forced into. Work that doesn't get the spotlight and isn't necessarily appreciated by others, even though it is fundamental to how people live. And Benedict, who belongs to the titled class that is the upper nobility into which he is born, is not the type of person who ideally would and should notice someone like Sophie until circumstances change and she becomes the lady in the silver gown that we see him obsessing over in the trailer. For him to find her, he would have to look beyond the surface, beyond the mask of the working class, to identify Sophie as the same woman he had danced with that night. But I also find the thought that beneath the glamour lies the work, the thankless work that is core to the experience. It's a great metaphor to creating art as it stands. The thankless hours of producing said art, of critiquing, self critiquing it, making it better, doubting yourself, pouring hours, days, months, even years of your time into work that, when it is then displayed, is enough to capture people's breath and attention without them knowing what went into making that piece of art. I find it quite poetic that it applies to Sophie, her work as a servant, and Benedict and his work as an artist. And how, even with her work, Sophie is someone who still isn't jaded and seeks to find the beauty in things, which is something that Benedict is going to learn through his interactions with her, most likely in the season. I bring this up because I have seen fans excited about Benedict's turn as a love interest this season, especially in his role as Prince Charming. And I just felt it important that we all collectively remember that whilst the romance has always been a core and crucial part of Bridgerton as a series, each season is also focused on helping the love interest, these characters, follow through on their own journeys as they grow and heal beyond the self limiting beliefs and thoughts that would have seen them unable to embrace love and happiness for themselves. Whether it is Simon having to come to terms with the fact that his father's opinions of himself and his disability cannot be allowed to define his decisions and his future, and that he would always be a better man and father to his kids than the late Lord Hastings was to him, or Anthony having to come to terms with the fact that his fear about his own mortality and how the loss of his father shattered his mother should not then keep him from finding love. And instead, every second and moment is one that should be cherished, especially when you're lucky enough to find someone who is your soulmate. Or Colin having to learn that there is no need for him to pretend to be someone he isn't, all for the sake of gaining attention or changing the perception of himself, when indeed and truly the one who loves him has always seen him and loved him because of that. Or even George, who has to come to terms with the fact that yes, he might be losing his mind, but he's still loved and he still has so much to give to his people, to his queen, to the kids that they have before his mind fails him. Each of these characters, these men, whilst the romance is a core part of their story, have to learn to grow outside of it. And the same would apply to Benedict Bridgerton as well, because, like the trailer says, behind the cover of a mask, anything can happen. And for this season, as far as Benedict is concerned, a lot of things will happen. He will learn to look beyond the facade of respectability to notice those whose work and effort make his life spin without any hitches or breaks. He will learn to step out of what restricts him as an artist and discover the simple, pure joy of making art again, not just one that gets the recognition of his peers or certain institution. And in so doing, he will find himself gaining said recognition after all. He will also learn that people are really as they appear and that sometimes they do and will surprise him. And he will learn all of this the minute Sophie walks into his life with a mask over her face and a light in her eyes that cannot be dimmed. And I don't know about you, but I am so excited to see it all go down. But of course, these are just my thoughts. I would, as always, love to hear yours. Whether or not you agree with me, please share them with me in the comments. Like this video, however, if you've watched this far and haven't done so yet, but enjoyed anything of what I had to say, share it so others can find my channel as well. Or you can check out my gaming or ASMR channels if they sound like something you might be interested in. I have them both linked in the description bar. I will see you on Monday with a new video. Until then, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.